Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's a special episode of the Spurs Lounge. As I change the layout, can uh, disregard changing the layout. Um, Name of the episode: 22-23 season, the state of Spurs. Um, Season is done. It's it's over. It has been a down season. I haven't felt this low in 07, 08. Oh gosh, I haven't felt this low about Spurs um, in the, use my math 20, 23, the 15, 16 years of supporting this club. This is the lowest. The closest thing was when Tim Sherwood was at the helm, but haven't felt this low about the club, the direction of the club ever. I wasn't there for the '90s, and so I I couldn't tell you how bad it was, you know. But it's not good. But we're gonna have various opinions on the show tonight. A couple of people are running a little bit late, which gives me time to kind of give my monologue as they jump in. But before I start, who are already here, we got Daryl Denton, who's also in the house. He says, Phase one, we are fans trying to convince each other whoever we get right. 100%. Bang on, spot on. You that's my feeling. You know, it is going to be a painful rebuild. You know, whoever comes in, there's a lot more. We're going to talk about a lot more structural damage than what it is. And our guest is here. Let me bring him in before I big up everybody else. Um, See if he's ready. Let's see. Okay. Ian, can you hear me? Ian. Okay. As Ian comes in, like I said, we're gonna have various opinions tonight on the state of our club, and so Ian is coming in tonight. Some of you might have seen him in some other streams before. Ian has some moderate views in regards to Enoch and Levy and the board. Um, and Ian will explain to himself where he sits. He's not 100% Levy out like I would be. I'm Levy out, Stell Levy out, and Iggy, and it, Ian will explain for himself. He's not Levy in, but he's not Levy out. Last time I checked, but he has wonderful insights. We will talk about financial and hey, Ian's in the house. Can you hear him? Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're on mute. Let me see. You may put up the volume. Maybe you can put up the volume, I guess. Maybe come out and then come back in. Maybe that will work. Yeah. Let me. All right. So Ian will come back, but that was Ian. Like I said, we're gonna have various opinions of people who are running late, but they will go on. I'll let's continue to big up who's in the house. We got Mark Swift. Hit that like, yes, hit that like, sub, please. Get the super chats in too. To Tottenham away too, guys. You want to sub to Tottenham away too. There's going to be some interesting content on Tottenham away too, coming up in a couple of days. So you want to sub. Oh, Eric Lamela is coming here in for Brian Hill. Yes, I do. I will give updates of the game. Roma is up 1-0. Paulo Dybala with a beautiful goal. And now as true Mourinho fashion, he's going to park the bus. Park the bus. But yeah, I'll give you an update. There has been a change. Brian Hill is out, and Lamela is in. So yeah, big up to Ant. Big up to Lily White Lane. Big up. Big up to Ron. He'll do well today. How come he shares Spurs? Yeah, I know. But he just got subbed. He got subbed off. Still too lightweight for me. Too lightweight. Boy needs to eat. He needs to eat. Jose Mourinho and Roma up. Yep, well, nothing. Big Paul, big up. Yep. Big up Mark Swift, big supporter of the channels. Big up. Big up to James. Yeah, I will bring the drama tonight. I will. Got some various opinions. Started a little bit early, and a couple people are late, but they will be here. Big up Chris, big up Paul, big up Top Spurs, big up. All right, and big up Laphomatic. Evie in the mud, 100% in the mud. Yep, big up Lily White Lane, big up Stewart, big up Mike, big up Mr. Levy Club. Yes, I love that comment. It's true. It is true. This is the lowest. And see, I didn't see us get regulated. This is the lowest. There was a story. There was a guy who's had season tickets since 1954, not renewing his ticket. Not renewing his tickets. This is how bad it has become. And he was there for the 90s. He was there for the 90s. I forgot the guy's name if you follow Twitter, but he posted he's not renewing his season tickets. He's been a season ticket holder since 1954. So he saw the glory years. He saw when we were last champions of England. And now he is just so depressed by the direction of the club. It's just, yeah. It's just low. It's just, if you see me on some other streams, it's just, I'm not even mad anymore. It's just, I'm beyond that. It's bad when you're not even mad anymore. Big up Roy. Big up Muhammad. Big up. Was born in the 90s, but surely can it be as bad as this? Oh, I think I hear him. Ian.
Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yes, I can hear you.
I've now gone on to my mobile phone. There's something wrong with my microphone, and I don't know what. And there's a limit to how long I want to wait to get it to work. But you can hear me now.
Really?
So I heard what you said before, in terms of not ENIC out, and what have you. So let me pretty well explain where I'm at the moment. It would be fair to say that over the last 6 months, and it's been a little while since we've done a stream together, Murray,
it's been a while.
That my view on Levy and ENIC has hardened to the extent that there does come a point where you say, if you continue to fail in your job, then something has to give. And I think in any company that Levy wasn't an owner, a major shareholder of, close business associate of the owner, he would have been relieved of his duties. I don't think there's any doubt now about that. You cannot fail with the number of appointments he's made, trying lots of different things, different ways, bringing in, up and coming managers, bringing in this, then bringing in the superstar managers, the Contes and the Mourinhos, and all of it has failed. And you can't keep getting away with that. Now, where I perhaps digress from some of the big Levy outers in the community that we know, is sometimes better the devil you know. Now, you look at other business models, ownership models. I mean, first of all, let's say some rich American came in, like Bowley, and I'm sure every Chelsea supporter thought, this is manna from heaven. Absolute manna from heaven. We had a rich benefactor in Abramovich, probably spending Putin's money, but hey, that's perhaps another story, and I'll keep some of the politics out of it. Bowley comes in, he spends £600 million, and to me, Chelsea, we'll talk about Pochettino, but Chelsea's problems, in my view, are only just beginning, because they've now bought an awful lot of players, some of whom won't make it, on 8-year contracts at £10 million a year, and are going to say, hey, you want me to move on because the manager doesn't fancy me anymore? Well, this is the money that you got to pay me to get me out of my contract, and then I'll think of moving. And that might be 10, 20 million. So they've got a lot of issues on that. Plus, I think their financial fair play issues are going to come into play. You've then got other models. So, for example, you've got the nation state, like the Qataris or whatever. You've got the situation where the Saudis have just bought, the Saudis have just bought Newcastle United. And these are people that have admitted to luring a Turkish journalist who didn't particularly like their regime to their embassy in Ankara, to the Saudi embassy in Ankara, killed him and chopped him up. Now, they're not the kind of people that I want owning my football club. So there is that. Having said that, that's not to say, well, that's okay, we'll just stick with Levy and ENIC. If somebody comes along that's got the money, that's prepared to invest the money, and has a proper business plan for the club, I'm all ears. What I would say to you, though, is I think there's a successful model that can be achieved where ENIC remains, where Levy does what he's good at, which is managing, Tottenham Hotspur PLC, as it used to be, the overall business, the land side, the commercial side, etc. But the key has to be that football decisions have got to be left to football people. And I mean, there is suggestions. I presume we'll come on to the search for a new manager at some point before too long. And there's talk, and certainly I don't know how much of the British press you're able to read, but I imagine, well, online now you're able to read a fair amount of it. Yeah. There is talk that there are a lot of managers that are being, I think it was Ramon Vega who said, people in the game talk. People in the game talk, and it's, well, do you want to go and work for Levy because you've got this? You won't get time. You might want this player, but they want that player, and what have you. I've never quite understood how a football club as an institution goes out and buys a player, and that the manager doesn't want. It's just not something I understand. I mean, it's if your production director wants a left-handed widget maker, and you go out and buy a submarine, that's perhaps not going to work. So, if Levy is prepared to be hands off And I think that's a tough task for him. And to allow football people to run the football side, we've recruited this guy, Scott Munn, and I think that has other significance as well. Plus, who is going to be overall in charge of the football side. We're going to be employing a director of football as well. So that's two people. So you fingers crossed, big fingers crossed, that we get to a position where Levy is saying, okay, I've failed. I'll accept I've failed on the football side. I'm going to let football people run the business. I actually don't have any problem with Levy and Enoch carrying on. Now, there are a lot in the community that will say, look, no way, they've had their chance, they should go. They're not entirely to blame for the fact that we've failed to win so many cups. We've been in plenty of semi-finals, a few finals, come close in the league. We just need that extra push. But as I say, sometimes it's the devil, and I'm not sure. I've seen an offer from an alternative source that makes me turn around and say, yeah, that's a preferential owner.
So you brought up so many things, and like I said, that's why I wanted to have you on, just to get some diversity on just the view of the club from players to ownership. Sevilla with a beautiful goal just tied the game. Just to update.
I've been out, as you know, so I don't know the score. So
okay, I will keep my mouth shut.
Okay.
Yeah, but but yeah, and just to get different perspectives, and I know we've talked once or twice before about that. And we'll go from there because it is talk about stay at the club. I will show you, and those who are watching today, it was released today, and 2 years. These are what I'm about to put on the screen, the top 10 most valuable football teams in the world. Real Madrid at 6.7 billion, United at 6. This is before the supposed sale of the club. Barcelona, the value is there, and the way Deloitte and Forbes they go by the market value of Barcelona, Liverpool, City, Bayern, PSG, Chelsea, Tottenham, and Arsenal. Out of all those clubs there, within the last 15 years, we're the only club that haven't brought any silverware.
Yeah.
But I would go to, because you brought up the first premise, the enemy, well, the devil, I'm butchering the line there. It is. I mean, I've always looked at it as a very frustrating comment because, in life you take risk, and even the model of the club to dare is to do, right?
Yep.
Yes, there's always a potential, to get an owner, and he be worse than what it is, but then it almost keeps you in the Stockholm disease type of realm where, all right, Levy has got us into a financial safety net, but and I would also like to add there's some questionable stuff between him and Lewis and what they have done, but so there's skeletons in everybody's closet. But you brought up Todd Bowley, buying all these young players who may pan out for Pochettino. Yes, in regards to the FPP or the FFP, we don't know what's going to happen. From what I've seen in regards to the FFP, they have been soft with PSG, with City, and City. As of now, there's rumors that are coming out, but you have to kind of give credit their structure, because people think City just buys like from their recruitment, right, to to their structure.
Mm.
It's you have to be impressed by that. Though, they're from the Middle East, you have to be impressed. And even Arsenal, the fans, they complain about the Kroenke ownership, but it's starting to pan out. And if you look at their other sports entities, they just won the Super Bowl. They just had a team in the NBA Finals. They have been pretty much conservative, whereas Todd Bowley has done it in a different way. So I don't know in regards to, but it's going to take a whole lot. I agree with you. It's going to take a whole lot to buy Tottenham Hotspur, and then I agree with you on that. Any thoughts on what I just said?
Yeah, no, and I mean, I think we're on the same page. One of my quibbles with some of the Levy outers is you've got to have an alternative plan. It's no good just saying we want Levy out or Levy out stroke ENIC out unless there's someone else to unless there's somebody else to take their place. Now, I don't have any issue if someone comes along with the money and says we want to buy Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. Now, it values that valuation of 2.8 billion. That's actually conservative compared to what I've seen, but I guess the same as anything, Mahri, a football club like any other business is worth what someone's prepared to pay for it. But of course, within that 2.8 billion. Within that 2.8 billion, there's somewhere in the region of 800 million pounds worth of debt. So is that saying that's the net value of the club, or are they saying that's the gross value of the club, in which case someone will be looking to say 1.6 billion, and there's no way in the world that they will sell for that. I'm trying to read the comments as well while I'm talking to actually answer them. Son in charge, also CFO of a finance company called Tavistock Group. Yeah, funny enough, I know someone that works with his son. With his son.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with. I think I told you this. I'm very familiar with Tavistock, being based in Orlando, which I have on screen with value. I will pose this question to you. I've said in the past that because there are those within the fan base who feels that we can't compete with the oil money, which is Manchester City. Not it's not Liverpool. Liverpool is not oil money. The Glazers of United is not oil money. Chelsea. Then you have Chelsea, but real estate money, Tavistock has been one of the most successful businesses, even during COVID. Me being here in Florida, Tavistock has flourished even during those times. And so I've always said this, that there's a model that some franchises or some sports or some clubs do in regards. Tottenham, I've always seen as a club that wants to pay within itself, right? The profits that are made, especially within ENIC, right? And very rarely you see an influx of cash from the outside, meaning taps like from Joe Lewis, where other clubs, right, they do that, right? Man City, and some funds. Now, I don't have a problem with that model that Tottenham has, right, or what Levy tries to accomplish. The question that fans have always had, especially those who are Levy out like me, is has that model worked with fidelity, right? Has the club really paid for itself in regards to transfers, spending money on football issues? So I posed that question. Do you feel that has it been run with fidelity?
Yeah, I mean, and I think and I think you're absolutely right. I mean, just in terms of when people talk about Levy out and that comment from Andy there, which is a well-made one, I don't think anybody's talking. Certainly, I'm not about putting, Levy out, putting in another Levy in, another basically stool pigeon for him. That's absolutely what's this micromanaging control freak relinquish? I think that's I think this is absolutely the point, is that is Levy able to step away and actually lead people to do their jobs? I think this point about micromanager is absolutely 100% spot on, and I think that therein lies the problem. By Jeremy Gitt. Newsflash: micromanaging control freak relinquishes control at Spurs. That is, to be honest with you, in a nutshell, that to me is the issue. Because if he can't, the club can't progress. Because he keeps making bad decisions, wrong decisions, and what have you. So, unless that changes, the club won't progress. When I talk about leaning out, if we say, that has to be on the basis that Levy genuinely leaves control of the football to the football people. If he's not prepared to do that, then I think I'll be manning the barricades next and saying we need to find an alternative buyer. But we don't have one. And similarly, putting his son in as a stool pigeon, I don't think that's realistic. But going back to the Lewis situation, all right, their business model, and you respect their business model, is we're an English national investment company. Let's forget it's an acronym, investment company. They're in the business of football to make money. Now, I actually don't have any problem with that. There's a rather quaint idea that all football owners should be paternalistic benefactors. Starting off with owning £10 billion worth of assets themselves, buying a football club and pouring billions of pounds into it to make it a great club. That's not actually a business model at all. It's a fairy godmother model, and I don't actually have any difficulty if Enoch say that's not their business model. However, Joe Lewis is worth how many billions on a personal level? I mean, more than that, more than 2.8. I don't know what the last number is.
He's about 4 billion and
4 billion. He is an octogenarian. He is, so I don't know what he is, 83. You can't take it with you. And what I don't fathom, and that's maybe I don't fathom because I'm a fan. I'm a businessman, but my business interests don't include Tottenham Hotspur, is why would they not spend some of their own money? Why would they not speculate to accumulate by winning things, getting the fans off their case and what have you, when he's got so much? I mean, if you have 4 billion, think about, you've got £4 billion. If I had £4 billion, how much money I could give to my kids and my grandkids, and how much money I'd still have left over. So that's the bit I sort of don't get, is why they're not willing to, even if they put capital in to take more shares. All right, that might mean diluting some smaller shareholders, which are people like me. I think I've got some shares that my late father left me, but so that's the bit I don't get. But that point by Jeremy Gitt, micromanaging control freak relinquishes control at top. Therein lies the problem, and that's the bit that worries me. I've given Levy and Enoch a lot of latitude, and one of the reasons why I got invited onto streams is because if everybody's singing the same tune, Levy out, yeah, Levy out, and it doesn't actually reflect the majority of the fan base, then it actually can get pretty boring. So somebody comes on and puts another side, but I am at the end of my tether with Levy, and that's and I would say it sounds a bit pompous, but if people like me are running out of patience with Levy, he's actually got problems. When people like me are saying, just fuck off, Daniel, because you've had enough chances and you can't keep making the same mistake time and time again and get away with it. I think he's got difficulties, and I think the numbers of Levy outers is growing. And if we don't get the right manager, and we'll come on to that because not everybody agrees with me on my choice of new manager, and we start the season badly, that pressure will grow. If after 10 games we're 10th with 15 points, there'll be a lot of ructions.
Yeah, and we got a lot of comments. I'm just trying to catch up. I will say this: there will be a statement later on on this subject. Out of respect for the other guys, we will address that on a very soon in another stream. But out of respect for the guests that I invited, who are running late, we were coming in to just talk about the state of Spurs. We have so many comments. I just want to say some good comments because I know you brought up the ethical issues of some of the possible buyers. I didn't want to focus too long. I just wanted to focus on the business model or how they run the club. There have been accusations, and some things are true about Joe Louis and his operations in South America, especially in Argentina, and also the whole furlough incident was not a good light of Enoch and Daniel Levy. So so I go to I St. Patrick's Day. I meet someone who knows Joe Louis very, very well.
Levy's, did you say?
For Joe Louis, works for Joe Louis.
Right.
And when I was just talking about Spurs, it was to their shock and to their amazement of just why Spurs are not successful. I told her the truth, unbiased, as financially been okay. When it comes to success on the field, the football matters. It has not been good. It's not good structure from top to bottom. And that employee, she was taken really aback because, according to her, Joe Louis puts the best people in positions to shine, and that's why people that work for him, his entities, are very successful. The only one that is not really that successful for his bang for his buck is Tottenham. Is Tottenham. So it was to her amazement, and so I told her a little bit more about Daniel Levy. And to your point, you brought up that if it was any other business entity, football matters. He would have been gone. Because it's just you've had the Paul Barbers, you've had the Paul Mitchells, you had people who you put in place to shine, but the micromanage, or as David Webb said, and I did a video of it. You have a guy who's not a football guy, right?
Yeah.
No respect.
You actually have hit a nail on the head there, Mahri, because there have been some very, very good football people have come and gone from the club. And you mentioned Paul Barber
and Brighton.
Did you?
And he was under the tutelage of Levy.
Exactly what Paul Barber is achieving at Brighton, having been given license by the owner to run the football club. And it appears to everybody that this is a very, very, very well-run business. Brighton Football Club, much better run business from the football side than Tottenham Hotspur. The other one was the head, not Comley, Paul Mitchell, which, I mean, his quote was, I had my dream job and it was turned into a nightmare by Daniel Levy. And there is a problem with Levy. Let's not be under any illusions. I'm not. I'm certainly not here, and certainly not anymore to be waving the Levy flag. Absolutely not. And in fact, funny enough, but I don't want to talk too much about Bob, but it was Bob that got me into the streaming. You know, I want somebody to come on to a stream and actually put a different, you know, who can articulate a view and put a different view, a different view across. But you know, that was that might have even been before Nuno was appointed, or Nuno was the manager, and then we've had Conte, then we've had Mason again, and Stellini, and now we're getting another manager. So there's a fair bit, even in that relatively short period of time, there's been a fair amount of water that's flown under the bridge, and again, therein lies the problem, or at least one of them.
Yeah. Well, here's the one thing, and you know, we talked a little bit about the ethics of the possible new owner and the ethics of, you know, of Daniel Levy and Joe Louis. I want to talk about, you know, because the term that's always bring up with Daniel Levy, right? He's a smart businessman. He's a smart businessman. And just put up the Forbes. You know, he took us, as that rap song says, he took us from the bottom. Now we're here. I would say that may be challenged right now because, for example, I've talked in previous streams about market share. I'll explain to you, Ian. In the 90s, right? There were clubs. Use America as an example. Real Madrid, Barcelona, United, right? Liverpool. They had the market share in the States or outside of the UK. Market share. Now, where I give credit for Levy, the rise of Tottenham, along with some other clubs, Chelsea, City, of course, they have chipped away at Manchester United and Levy's uh, market share in the States. And Gareth Bale was on Times Square on the billboard, getting the Champions League, right? So fast forward to now, the market share can always go up, it can always go down. There's some clubs that can have a bad spell, like United, right? United is like a global powerhouse. Their market share is really solid. Whereas with Tottenham, right, if you're a great businessman, right, you want the football operations to be at its best, right? As right now, we're regressing back to the point of the 90s, right? The 90s that I didn't see, where we were in trouble, right? We're regressing. Stell puts it real well. And right now, that is threatening on the business wise. That is threatening the no penalty. Now, well, you're not watching the game, so I can't say anymore. But if you're a smart businessman, right, you want to set up the club where it's continually, you know, active, continually not going backward, right? And I think even Pochettino wanted to do that, right? After the Champions League final, hey, you know what? We need a painful rebuild, right? And it would have not been that much painful if we had that rebuild. Now, this is a painful rebuild, I feel, and we're going to talk about that as more people come in.
Yeah.
But the painful rebuild is going to be even more painful. It's going to be painful times 5. Yeah. And the thing is, the market share, right? If you're a big, smart businessman, Tottenham's market share is going down, right? I just came back from Mexico City. You know how many Manchester City jerseys I've seen and talking to teenagers or youth? While people know I travel a lot to Mexico. Manchester City's market share has gone up as, you know, success goes. Tottenham's market share now is seriously in big trouble. So is Daniel Levy really a good businessman. I know, got Beyonce, got the F1 track, money pumping in. But if you're a great businessman, you know, you have to understand that, whoa, the main tenant is Tottenham football.
Yeah. In fairness, if you buy any business for £300 million or thereabouts, and you turn it into a business worth £3 billion or thereabouts, I don't think anyone can quibble with your business success in 20 years. I mean, that's 1,000% increase. I think we can. I mean, I'm not sure this argument will take us, or this discussion will take us much further in terms of saying, well, all right, Levy is Levy's a good businessman, a bad businessman, a good company to owners or a bad company to owners. I'm quite happy to find an alternative owner if there's one out there. I mean, I rather thought somebody, for example, like Google or Amazon, somebody like that with who would want to create a global brand, to use something like when you see the American football, the gridiron football games that are being played, when they keep mentioning the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, Imagine if that for the what you call it, for the American market and the potential of the business, when it's the Nike Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, the Amazon Tottenham Stadium, or whatever you call it. And that's where I thought the direction of the business would go. Whether they took a large minority shareholding or whether they took an entire shareholding, either way, I think that would hopefully would bring in fresh money, because of course if they just bought ENIC shares, that wouldn't bring fresh money. That money would go into Levy and Lewis's pockets. But if they were to bring in fresh investment like that, I would be dancing down the high road. I mean, absolutely dancing down Tottenham High Road.
Yeah, Andrew Lloyd, love the comments you're posting. The club needs a complete change, because no matter who we bring in, we'll be subject to the same culture of prioritizing consistency.
Yeah.
Success. And if you're a great business, or even, whatever entity you are, the culture of that entity is huge. And we're going to talk about that when we bring up the players. So as we still wait, I think a lot of people are still watching the Europa League. Season's expectations.
Yeah.
All right.
Tell me the score. Tell me what's happening in the Europa final.
It's 1-1. It's getting close to the end. Yeah. Season expectations. Let's go rewind to this point last year. We just got top 4. What was your season's expectations going in?
I expected that there would be more players brought in, particularly defensively. I remember going back to the beginning of the season, in fact, doing a stream with Sean Butler. Or was it with Tommy? No, it wasn't. It was with Tommy. And expecting more players to be brought in. Sorry, I didn't see that comment. So more players to have been brought in, that Conte would take us to... will that sponsor money get pointed? That's the $64,000 question. I mean, this is really important. But anyway, let's move on to what my expectations were. I thought that Conte, having got us to top 4, would bring in more of his own players, would develop the squad. We would move on, and we would finish top 4, and we would undoubtedly win something. Maybe not the league, maybe not the Champions League, but win one of the 2 domestic cups. And when you look at how we went out of those with a whimper under Conte, I mean, that was scandalous. So I went into the season with high expectations, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's such a disappointment. If you go in expecting to finish mid-table and you finish 8th, you're actually quite happy. Brentford supporters will be over the moon at where they finished. Brighton supporters will be dancing on the beach in Brighton. Spurs supporters are entitled to feel betrayed at the way this season went wrong. Utterly betrayed.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I'll give my season expectations. My expectations was that we would win one of the cups. I thought we will be that golden chance for Roma. I thought we would be in a position to bring one of the domestic cups. Didn't think we are going to do much with Champions League, and I saw us qualifying for top four. But this was on the basis of, like you said, you know, get a defender in, um, because Eric Dyer, okay, to his benefit, um, he he improved, but it was almost like Cinderella, where the carriage turns back into a pumpkin, and so that's what happened this year. A lot of the players who got that new manager bump in Conte, uh, okay, did well enough, and our front three coming in, I had them as one of the best. I would say one of the best in Europe because Kulu was all world, Sonny was, Golden Boot tied with Salah, and Kane's Kane. So my expectations was, okay, we'll finally get a trophy, but there was still much more to do because I don't know if you agree. I felt like he wasn't back. I felt like
Uh,
I felt like the first 2 weeks when we got some of the players in. I'm
yeah,
like, okay, because normally we wait till August 31st, August 30th to get players in. We
yeah,
would get players in. We had gotten Basuma,
yeah,
but then when I saw that momentum kind of was quelched, and we started going after the Jet Spence, and I forcing Inter Milan's hand in regards to Bastoni. I was like, oh boy, we're in trouble,
yeah,
and so I kind of saw that, I was expecting kind of like the same results as the season prior, but with the FA Cup.
yeah. You're freezing on me a little bit. I don't know if that's your end or mine, but I
Okay.
mean, when you look at it, I agree. One of the things I would say is, first of all, the board, apparently this drawdown, they made money available. They put 100. I'm not quite sure of the business mechanics of it, but they put £100 million in that was available to be spent in exchange for shares, which is the sort of thing I was talking about with Lewis and Enoch and earlier. But they were going to buy extra shares with that. That's fine. That money didn't get spent, or at least all of it didn't get spent. But one of the things is the players that we were linked with, Gaviola, the Croatian, if I've pronounced that wrong, the Bastonis and what have you. None of them ended up moving. My biggest disappointment, though, if you look at the defence, yeah, we all know there's been weaknesses there, but coaches are meant to improve players. And when you look at the end of last season, we weren't conceding goals. With Dyer, Davis, and Romero injured as well, we weren't conceding goals. So I thought, well, okay, it's not great because I expected us to get one, if not two, quality central defenders in. That's what my expectation was. There was talk that they were looking for a replacement for Ben Davis. We got Longley, who I think is okay. And I don't think that I gather we're not trying to extend his loan or buy him. I don't think he was an upgrade on Davis. And if he was an upgrade on Davis, it wasn't at the level of upgrade that anybody watching should say that's the level of upgrade we needed to push on as a club. Nowhere near it. Not a bad player. Better as a central sort of the left-sided central defender, I thought, when we played a four, than he was at left wing, at left centre half. But not the kind of upgrade. What my biggest gripe would be from this season is the players that went backwards in terms of ability. Hugo Lloris, granted, you can put it down to age, went backwards. Davis probably went back a little bit. Dyer has gone backwards enormously, got a lot of sticks, some of it justified, not all of it. But it's certainly since his World Cup call up at, in November, he's been absolutely horrific. Højbjerg, not developed. Bissouma, nothing like the quality of player he was at Brighton.
Right.
That was the player we bought. I'm looking for a box-to-box, drive-on player, not as good as Dembele, but that kind of player. And I haven't seen him. Son has gone backwards. He's had an injury, but to me, Kulusevski went backwards. I'm worried about that he's just too one-dimensional. But
Romero,
30 million pounds on him. He's going to divide opinion because on his day he's a great player. I just worry that that's 30 million pounds. We've bought Porro for 40 million pounds and found, how do we spend 40 million pounds? That everybody on these streams, get the deal done, Levy. Just spend the money. 40 million pounds, and he can't defend. He might end up being a really, really excellent right-sided attacker or midfield player. He ain't a right back, and he certainly ain't a right back in a four. In fact, he played really well at Leeds further up the park. But so we bought a right wing back. We bought Spence, doesn't get a game, who's gone out on loan. You could see if you then let's say who improved as a player. Skip came in, not done it, and I'm a huge fan of Ollie Skip. But since he came into the side after Bentancur got injured, he's not developed at all. Therein to me is that's what a coach is meant to do, meant to improve players. Pochettino improved players, improved just about every player under his direction.
You bring up a point because I put up what went wrong with the club. You have those who be Conte outers, and you had those who were Conte in. I was always Conte in, on the premise that he wasn't backed. He hasn't had enough time.
Yeah.
But I mentioned him because you bring up the point that Pochettino improved players, but he also said about the same players, the Eric Dyers and Davies, that we needed a painful rebuild. Some of these players he didn't play, meaning that he could have changed them. So if Pochettino can change them, Jose Mourinho can change them. I'm skipping Nuno, but what? Why are people expecting Conte to change them? Like Eric Dyer had a little, like I said, he had that season where he got himself back on the England national team, but regressed back to his level, which is not good enough. Not good enough. So why do you feel that maybe Conte got criticized for not proving these players who are just not good enough?
I think I would be, because this is one of the things we actually don't know what went on. If we'd have heard that Bastoni, for example, was willing to come, but Levy wouldn't pay the money or whatever, I would get that. But I'm not aware of any player that Conte wanted that we went in for that wouldn't come to the club, or we wouldn't pay the money. Not aware of any of that at all. Where you see Conte, that we go back. Let's go back to that rant Conte had after the Southampton game. Now, what he said, there was a lot of truth in that. That you come here, you change the manager, it's always the same players, and you wonder what went wrong. Well, all right, Conte wasn't here that long, but he was there from November 21 to April 23. So he had, I think, 3 transfer windows. So, you know, what did he actually do? Was he saying to Levy, these players need to move on? And if he didn't do it, then he should have walked. When he made that rant after the Southampton, I'd have had a lot more time for him if he'd said, the players aren't good enough. I've told the manager, I've told the chairman, the players aren't good enough. He's agreed to back me. I've signed a new 3-year contract with Tottenham Hotspur. I'm going to drag this club screaming to the top where it wants to be. And the players now have 10 games or whatever it is to demonstrate to me they're good enough to play for this club. But instead, all he did was, you know, he came out the dressing room. But before he came out the dressing room, he took the pin out of the grenades, chucked the grenade in, and closed the dressing room door and waited for the grenade to explode. I mean, to me, that was, I would say it was unforgivable. There was an incident. It's no coincidence, Murray, that there was an international break coming up, and that was basically his suicide letter. I don't want to be at this club. I'm not going to be at this club. So why don't I just make my position untenable, make the club pay me off and what have you, and go. By which time as well, I think Spurs fans, particularly Spurs fans, would have accepted the poor quality football if it had come with results, if we'd have been winning things. But it isn't the Tottenham way. And I've been what am I? I'm 63. First team game at the old White Hart Lane was in 1967. I suspect that's well before you were born. So there is something, we talk about the club's DNA, about winning in style. That Danny Blanchflower, the game's about glory. It's about going out and beating the other, not sitting back and waiting for them to die of boredom. That's the club's philosophy. Now, you could sacrifice some of that in the modern professional Premier League world that we live in. You know, it's not a romantic business, football. It's a big business. If we'd have been successful, but to be playing the kind of turgid, awful football that we were playing under Conte, that the players were clearly unhappy with, and losing. The way we went out of the Champions League against Milan, and not even a good Milan side, and never scored a goal and rarely looked like scoring a goal against them. That Sheffield United in the FA Cup, awful. What was it? Nottingham Forest in the League Cup. All were weakened sides. Everything goes back, and I think that's what, for most people in the end, were glad to see Conte go, because he wasn't offering anything at all to the club. I mean, the other thing is the under-21s, I think, got relegated. And one of the things I gather was that the under-21s were being used in sessions to act effectively as cones, that they were just to take up positions and stand where the first team were sort of running around them doing these. It was almost choreographed football. You know, every time you get the ball, you run here. No, that's where the ball goes. You have to move there. And of course, teams have tactics and what have you. But when you take the initiative out of and any individuality out of any employee in any organization, of course they'll become stale.
Ian, I want to bring up this point, right?
Yeah.
And yes, he could have walked away, and that I'll go with that point, and it's probably the reason why I don't want Luis Enrique to come, because I feel
you don't want who to come.
Luis Enrique, because if he doesn't get what he wants, he's going to complain.
Yeah.
But what? Now I understand there are those who felt he really disrespected the club for his comments, but the comments that he made were exactly what Jose said, was exactly what Poch said. You know, people forgot the statements that Poch made when we lost to Newcastle. Almost to a point, he told the players they can't go home to their wives and girlfriends. Um, that was harsh. Found as harsh, and his comments about the players were that these players don't have heart. They don't play for the badge. He even apologized to the fans about this team, and later on we will see that they got pumped when going to Newcastle 6-1. But
Mm.
these are the same players who um, didn't didn't play for the badge, but also too it just they failed they failed the club, and so I understand that people don't like the way the don't like the way it was presented or said, but there were a lot of truth to the matter of what he was saying in regards to these players. That these players that their heart is not in it, that they can't beat a AC Milan team, that they can't beat a Sheffield United team, or get eliminated in the FA Cup, and
Yeah.
people question that Tottenham is better. I tell people no, Tottenham was not better because those players were hungry. You could watch the game; those players were hungry to win the game. And
But
when you have hunger and desire, right?
yeah. But
That's what Conte said. These players don't have desire.
but
Jose
look,
said the same thing. Poch said the same thing. This is more than this is an institutional thing. This is sorry, I
you cut.
actually I, Ash, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. This is more of an institutional thing, you know,
But hang on.
stemming from the top
Ha-
of why
ha-
do these players, right? I almost feel like they need a team psychiatrist. Like, who is the team
Yeah.
psychiatrist at Spurs where when the pressure comes,
Yeah. But let's
full,
have a let's
right?
have a
It
let's have a look at this. Um, since Conte came in, we've recruited, and it may be all right since Stellini came in. Not Stellini, Parasici. Um, we've recruited Porro, Emerson, Romero, Lengley, Perisic, Forster as a reserve goalkeeper, and the other one that was rubbish as went back.
Emerson was new now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bentancur. I suppose Skip's come back on loan. Kulusevski. That's I've got 9 players. So let's look at this sensibly. We are replacing players, and still the problem exists. So where is that coming from? I mean, I would say the culture becomes at the top, but the Paratici and Conti were bringing in their players. We could almost field a team of players that weren't at the club 2 years ago. Never mind about in Pochettino's time, and still the same problem exists. So yeah, okay, we've got the Sanchez is still there, Davis is still there, Dyer is still there, but we brought in Romero, we brought in Longley, Perisic as a wing back, Emerson, Porro. Yeah, it's not. It can't be that simple. And I think the problem is probably more cultural than just
It's
down to individual
cultural. When you walk, if you open the doors, you walk in there. Even the Jack Clarks have said, like, they sense that it's not a culture of winning, like a sense of like of winning. So it's like, can you imagine Perisic, who I thought has had a meh year, open the doors and it's just like vapors. oh my, what did I just sign up for? You know, like it's like excuse my French. Oh shit. Is it? Can I change my mind? Can I leave the door? It's almost as of that. But Ash is in, and I want to fill Ash. Um, fill him. No, catch him up on what we're talking about. Um, we're on our second subject. What went wrong with the club? But I wanted to know what was your expectation. Let's go back in the time machine, right?
Just
This
before,
day,
just before, I'm going to take a brief comfort stop. So give me 2 or 3 minutes.
okay. Um, um, we go back in the time machine. It's this year. Last year, we just made the top four. What was your expectations coming in for this season for Spurs?
I think like everyone else, we just finished top four, and the hope was that we would do well in competitions. We'd maintain the top four. We've got more squad depth. Sorry, more squad depth. We didn't strengthen in all the areas we needed to, so there was a slight hesitance on how well we could do in the league. However, yeah, there was an expectation I felt, especially in the club, that we'd go on to have push on in the Champions League and push on, especially in the FA Cup more so, or the League Cup. I thought we really were going to go for a cup this year and really trying to like make a statement with Conte. I know like Conte wasn't really renowned for doing well in the Champions League and he didn't make it past certain stages, but I think the minimum expectation for Spurs fans was staying in that top four. Some people say, that wasn't the expectation, but I can only talk for myself. And I was hoping that, we'd keep up the fight. And once Conte was there, at least from what I saw, we were still in the top four. We had a chance to even go third before it all went wrong. So, but yeah, for me, it's just like, yeah, that was my expectation anyway for the season. A good cup run in the League Cup, if not win it, and FA Cup, a good run again, and finish top four. That was my expectation. Some people were going crazy saying third and second. I was like, whoa, slow down. That wasn't my expectation personally, but I thought, yeah, a top four.
Yeah, Bastoni, maybe, or
Yeah, but
Godball.
because we didn't get those players, I think it was the way the window ended, how the Jed Spence dragged on, that kind of really frustrated me. And then after that, there wasn't really anything to kind of look at. I mean, Doji, but that doesn't count to me because he's not playing the season.
Yeah,
So it was like that kind of window petered out for me. And I was hoping that we're going to do the last minute business like we normally do and we pull something out of the bag. It just never happened. I just kept waiting. And I was so disappointed by the end of the transfer window. And I thought, we started so well, so much energy, so much momentum, did something we've never done before by signing players early. So I thought, right, we're being proactive, we're being assertive. We know what we want. It looked like we were planning a little bit better and we were just trying to get targets down. But I didn't know that it's because it's the World Cup year, maybe. That's the reason why things like that happened, or maybe because Conte just demanded certain things. I know we got Longley on loan, and on the face of it, when I saw a video with Conte, he looked like he was smiling, like he looked happier after that preseason tour. I remember seeing pictures of Son and Kane throwing up. They're talking about Skip being the most fittest player in that preseason tour. It was off the back of COVID, so I was a bit disappointed with Basuma because he had to isolate, and so did Forster. But apart from that, I thought after the team's fit and he's had a whole preseason with them, then at least his ideas are being communicated and they're getting across to the style of play that he wants, what he thinks is going to be best suited for the players and for the team. And the fact that, like we said, off the back of last season, I think it was like my expectation really was from the back of last season. The way we finished it, the way we finished so strong, the way we kind of rallied on to the last day and we pipped it and we got back to the top four, and the way we dismantled teams on the route to it. We were beating Aston Villa like 4 goals. Norwich, obviously 5 at the end. Newcastle, we beat up 4. Do you know what I mean? It's not just the way. It's not just the fact we got top 4. It's just the way we did it as well. And Arsenal coming, they tried to stall it, but even when they came to us later on in the season, they still got dismantled, and we just look like a different animal altogether. And you need that in football, that momentum swing, and that's how I had that expectation going in that we were going to do.
So what happened?
Well.
I had, just like you, exactly like you, I had us finishing 4th still, FA Cup winners, right? What happened?
We got knocked out pretty early by Sheffield United. That's what happened. So basically, I think it wasn't just that. It was before that. I think it was a string of results that weren't going our way. We weren't on the best of runs. Obviously, before that was the Champions League last 16 round, and both legs we flat to deceive, especially the last leg. I felt like that's when we didn't turn up at all. And I think that bad performance kind of ran into that FA Cup run where Sheffield United's underdogs, they had no pressure. And I feel like because we had a bit of pressure after not performing, getting knocked out of the Champions League final, we had the pressure to turn up. And then it was a team that wasn't our strongest 11. It was a team that was quite mixed. So when you're playing in a team 11, you need that rhythm, you need that chemistry, you need that pattern of play that when you play next to your midfielder, if you turn to your left, you expect them to be there and not behind you or not 2 steps to the right or whatever. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I think that may have played a part of it, but those players that were on the pitch were still good enough to get that game done. But even prior to that, you have to consider the factors that, we lost our fitness coach and long-term friend of Antonio Conte.
Yeah.
I honestly thought, me personally, I thought it was going to bring them closer together because they buried like a plant in the name of him. They kind of all stuck together, and I expected them to rally on after that because he put them through so much, and lots of the players were having like statements and eulogies. A lot of them went to the funeral, etc. And it was a hard time for not just Conte, but for the club, I felt, because obviously he was employed by the club. That hanging over him. And then on top of it, I didn't think it helped that, Conte kept losing his people that were very close to him, that he knew for years, that he played football with. When I was watching Italia football back in the day, I remember Vialli and Ravanelli, and I remember Conte all in that same team for Juventus. It was a great side to watch. Zidane was in that team as well. It was a great team to watch. And losing one of your teammates that you're with them all the time. When you're playing football, you're with these guys. You grow up with them. They're part of your life. You know their family members. So the fact that he lost them was very stressful. And when you get stress on your body, it does affect certain organs. And I felt like that was a big reason why he had that gallbladder problem and he had to get it taken out. And he missed not large parts, but he missed a few games. And I personally think, it's not everyone's view, but this is my personal take on it. I think it did have an effect on how he handled bad situations. So certain situations were 10 times worse than like if his friend was there or someone there was to calm him down. I know his brother was on staff, etc. But I just felt like it all kind of added to the capitulation of the Spurs going down, me personally. But I looked at what he was trying to do. I just don't think, me personally, it suited the players that we had. I look at Conte and I think he tried to throw a blanket over Spurs and he tried to replicate what he did at Chelsea at Spurs, in my opinion. I felt like he tried to have the Kante and Matic partnership. But instead of having Kante and Matic, he had Højbjerg and Skip. Not quite the same. So when we lost Benton Core, you lost that kind of chemistry in the middle of the park. Yes, Skip's got legs. Yes, he's got a bundle of energy. Yes, he is switched on defensively. But I think in terms of like gelling the defense to attack, I think he hasn't got that next step, that next level. Between him and Højbjerg, they were very similar in terms of sitting back. Not one of them said, "Oh, I want to push on a new set," and vice versa. They didn't take turns. For me, they both kind of sat back. And then if you've got players that don't want to be on the ball, when sometimes you just got to be on the ball, and they're saying, "Look, pass to the left back, pass to the centre back, don't pass it to me yet." That kind of puts pressure on those players that have less ability. The people that had the ability were at the top, in my opinion. So, and I would even say Son, because Son's role changed from a wing or wing forward to an attacking mid, and he had a lot more defensive responsibilities, which changed his body shape during games. A lot of the time, you saw Son lose the ball when we were trying to transition from defense to attack. It'd be like the second or third pass, it'll go into Son. Son's backs to goal, but he's dropped past the halfway line. And teams kind of like legislated for that. They coached their teams better for that. So as soon as it went into Son, they clamped on him. So I think they were trying to give that Son role similar to what Kane does. Kane's a lot stronger. He can get the ball and he's allowed to turn, and then he can do that Hollywood's pass, where Son hasn't quite executed that yet. And then I think he was even saying in a post-match interview that, he felt like he let Conte down. They changed him. They wanted to play in a different position. And they wanted Son to arrive in a 6-yard box a lot more, a bit like what Kane was doing. But I think they're two different players, in my opinion. And I could see when Mason was in charge, he kind of tried to go back to what Jose was doing while letting Kane drop in and then Son spin on that last shoulder of the defender. Sorry, mate, go on.
I'll pop in here because I think you make some really good points. But one of the things I always felt with Son and Kulusevski this season, compared to last, was the speed with which we were getting the ball forward. And you look at the number of times Kulusevski and Son got the ball with their backs to goal, rather than with the ball being played early in front of them, where they could run onto the ball attacking the opponent's goal. And I thought that's where they were at their most effective, both of them. Just weren't doing that this year. And Son's never been a great player with his back to goal. He's not bad, but I wouldn't call him anything other than ordinary back to goal. His skill is with the ball. But I think this point about Conte and his injuries, and his illnesses, his own illness with his gallbladder, after his, 3 of his friends and died, would have, I think, given him a real thought about his own mortality and his own values in life. And I think, I forgot I didn't mention that when I was speaking. And I think that that's a really, really important point of where Conte was in his life. With the defeat at Nottingham Forest, the defeat at Southampton, and 1 or 2 of the other performances, you can actually understand in that context how he just basically, to speak a little bit of Italian, fuck it, can absolutely understand that.
So, and also, just to add to that as well, if you look at what Napoli just did, they won the league, and their manager straight away handed in resignation, saying, "Look, I gave it all. It's very taxing, and I need time out." So I can only imagine, like with Conte, working 24 hours round the clock in a hotel, no sleep, and then having these things on his mind, playing around in his head. And I don't think it helped that at points where you heard like disruptions in the dressing room, how some players, wanted them gone. That was the rumors. I don't know how true it was, but some players were saying that, it was getting monotonous, training was the same tactics, etc., etc. So I think Conte obviously has his philosophy and he has his way, but he doesn't what his tactics and his view of football, his idea of football, wasn't aligning with maybe some of the players that were underneath him. Like some players might have come in and they weren't necessarily his players, and they might have been disruptive. I don't know who they were, but obviously that was muted at the time when things were going wrong. So I wonder how much truth that has to the downfall in how the club went. And then also it definitely looked like when Conte was gone, when at the time when Stellini took over, that's when we started like winning games. When Stellini, obviously he won. Well, that players representatives led by Larissa and Dias says, okay.
I was gonna get to that. I was gonna get to that.
So basically, like when going back to when Conte was gone, it was almost like I felt like it was when the headmaster or the teacher's gone, and then you've got the supply teacher coming in. You're allowed to mess about a bit, or you can relax a bit. You can kind of like, because in that Man City game, we really played well. We won that game under Stellini and Mason, and then against West Ham and Chelsea, once again, obviously we got the 3 points out of those games again, and then it seemed like Conte was the big bad wolf because we started underperforming again once he came back. So that's another thing where like I felt like the dressing room may have been fractured or divided. There might have been some rebellion or some players that maybe they weren't playing for him, and that might have been the downfall and why we didn't do so well. But I don't think it helps when you have like massive injuries on top of that, when you've got the likes of the Bentancur situation happening, and we didn't sort out that wing back. Remember, for the first part of the season, I don't think Emerson was really playing to his full potential, not full potential, but I don't know if he was good enough in that area. Like we needed our wing back to be a winger and provide some assists and crosses, and he didn't really do that. Defensively, we can't really argue, but going forward with the ball, it felt like he wasn't doing his job, because in that system, your wing backs need to be assisting. They need to be high up. They need to be getting balls into the box for the strikers to run onto, because we play like more or less counter-attacking football. That's basically what we did when we were sitting back and defending.
We're gonna say something. Well, this is 100% what I'm saying. Wonderful points by Ash and Ian. What went wrong with this club is basically, like I said before, Perisic opened that door and said, "What did I sign on to?"
Yeah,
I think the same thing happened with Conte. I think it was a bad marriage in the sense of that he expected some things, and Daniel Levy expected some things, and I think Daniel Levy, feeling the pressure with the failed experiment that was Nuno, said, "Okay, I'm going to bring this guy in," and what ended up happening is that Levy had a sense of feeling like, all right, these players, especially, all right, they got us top 4. All right, these players are the players for Conte's system. In reality, they were not. And then with everything that happened to Conte, he checked out because he's not seeing the same passion. You have these players who have been soft for the last 5 or 6 years. Could read the comments from Jose and Poch, and it affected everybody. It's almost like a disease that has affected the club in regards of effort, playing for the badge, but also just lack of talent, right? People will say, well, how is Brighton, how is Brentford, like, they know the play, they have a plan, and I know every stream has talked about this.
Yeah.
And ethos. They have the way, right? If you tell you Ajax, right, I can tell you the type of football Ajax is going to play, what type of recruits they're going to bring, right? They're going to play total football, right? Johan Cruyff, type of football, Barcelona, right? Borussia Dortmund, right? They have a philosophy, right? and DNA. Levy has said that, but it's just like analytics. It's all fashionable, but it's not. It is not Spurs. The reason why there's not a football person there. All of this has affected the club to the sense it's now gone to the players. The players don't know. They're not knowing how to play. Then and it sounds ridiculous because these are grown men, professionals, and so not only are players are soft, it's just that there's no discipline on the field, right? You want your players to be an extension of your coach. I have not seen that. Like I'm being honest. People say Vertonghen. For me personally, I haven't seen an on-field leader instead of the coach since Ledley King. I'm being really honest. And so now I posed a question. The state of the club right now. I wanted to post this. Big up Stewart. This is exactly how I feel. This is the lowest I felt as a Spurs supporter. He's old enough. I saw us regulated.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'll go to you, Ian, and I'll go to Ash. Like, the state of the club right now. What is the state of the club right now? And who's to blame?
Well, the buck always stops at the top. I mean, nobody, even those that are not hostile to Levy, cannot argue with the fact that the buck always stops at the top. I can't remember which president it was that said, I don't know if it was Roosevelt or even Nixon that had the buck stops here on their desk in the Oval Office. That is just the bottom line. The buck stops with Levy. There can't be even Levy's grandmother couldn't come back from the dead and say it's not my Daniel's fault. It is your Daniel's fault because ultimately he is responsible for the decisions. And if we'd have been won the double and won the Champions, he would be entitled to take the credit. So the Levy has to take a big fair share of the blame. Again, I go back to the culture. Maybe the culture is too soft. I would expect, going back to your Perisic. I don't know. Perisic has been very poor. I'm not going into bat for Perisic. That's for certain. But what I would expect from the likes of Perisic, even the likes of Lloris, who's got a World Cup winning medal, is for people like that to show the real leadership in the dressing room. And something was happened with Lloris, and this injury that he's allegedly got. I don't think it's anything to do with it, but clearly there are fault lines there. And what I'm not seeing is winners and people with the right mentality going into the dressing room to their players and saying, and Conte is saying, if you're not up to this task, get out, go home, go on your holidays. I'll pick players that are. I've not seen any of that. I've not seen any of that from the likes of Lloris. And as I actually said before, I don't know if it came out. I don't think Kane, to me, ever demonstrates that kind of leadership. When a goal we leave, I don't see him, going up to players, encouraging them, rolling up his sleeves, clapping his hands.
Ian, I've been saying that, but unfortunately, he's untouchable to criticism. He's had a fantastic year. It's not his best year. He's had a fantastic year. But when I bring up leadership, he is not that dog. He is not that dog.
No.
Right? It's a different type of leadership. There is, character on and off the field. He's showing great character. That's great. But he's not Keane. He is not Wall. I use those as an example. He is not that on field, like, guys, this team, I'm sorry I'm going to rant, is the most undisciplined. Like, there was a game, I keep forgetting the game, and someone else reminds me, the game where every guy is arguing, Lloris is right out of the play, arguing with the ref, could have ran and tracked back and to knock out the goal for count. That's when I said, that's it, I'm done with Dyer. I was done with Dyer, but I was well done, steak, done with Dyer. because then that would have been a time where Kane grabbed him by the scruff of the hand and said, "Dude,
Yeah.
you got to track back. You got to track back." They're telling Southampton, right? The famous game where Conte blew up. Those are the things we're talking about.
No.
How did they come back? The discipline, their talent on the field. You can have talent, but if you don't have the discipline, if you don't have the intelligence, right? But it's.
I mean, I might have missed the name. Was it Stuart who said, "I've not felt this low, and I've seen us relegated"? I mean, I'm 63, so I remember us being relegated. Now, football was very different in those days. Going out of the first division and into the second division wasn't the biggest disaster in those days, certainly financially. The difference between income in the Premier League and the Championship is now massive, which didn't exist then. There was a gap, but it wasn't that great. But that relegation, in the end, became a relief because, you know, the 74-5 season, 75-6 season, and then 76-7 season. It was 3 seasons of constant struggle and deterioration. And the relegation actually, in the end, was a relief because we got beat every week. There's a limit to how often you can, you know, how many punches you can take before you want the referee to come in and stop the contest. And it was a little bit like that. And that enabled us to develop young players. Hoddle and McNabb in particular got back up the following season just about, and then that summer signing Diaz and Villa, and it'd be very difficult for young people to understand just how massive that was, pulling 2 people from Argentina's World Cup team when there was, you know, I would say in my day when I was younger, you know, a foreign player came from Scotland and an overseas player came from Ireland. That's how football was. I think there was some years in the 90s. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I watched football. It wasn't like we didn't have wall-to-wall television coverage in those days. The 90s. I was the father of two young girls. I also had a refereeing career, and football was played at 3:00 on a Saturday mostly. So, to be honest, we weren't doing very well. I had other priorities in my life, and I'm sure there were years in those 90s where you go, we really underachieved. But now I'm older. My kids have got kids. I've got time on my hands to watch football. And this season, I felt so low. That Newcastle game, that 6-1 game. I mean, Christ Almighty, I'm pleading. Can we play best of 3 sets for Christ's sake? That's how bad it was. You know, and I can understand someone saying that's the lowest I felt. And then the following week at Liverpool, and I actually turned the bloody thing off. And I never turn off football, Tottenham. Never, ever, ever turn off football. Never turn my back on Tottenham. Never, ever. And it was so bad, so pitiful, so embarrassing. The fact that we could have ended up winning the game, although we lost it. At least we showed some fight at Anfield. But I can understand anyone saying this is the lowest I felt. But then again, hopefully we're going to talk about the new manager before we go offline, and
we'll get to that.
Because the only way, as the song says, the only way is up.
Yeah. Towie reference. Yeah, the only way is up. For those Towie fans. Yeah, how do you know, Mahri, about Towie? I got international.
I can't remember who sang it now, and I'm the pop music guru of the only.
ITV.
Not Bobby Davro. Not Jason Donovan.
Who's to blame? State of the club right now. Before we talk about managers,
I personally, my personal opinion has always been, it's got to be Levy for me. I don't want to sound like an echo chamber, but yeah. I've been frustrated, and I said it earlier before, on how long we take to get things done, and I think that affects our business to prioritize on other issues. So, for example, like Levy was in charge. He said he wasn't going to get involved in terms of transfer business and football matters. He was going to take a step back, and that's the reason why he hired Paratici. So then I was very confused when Paratici wasn't moving fast and things weren't getting done. But then I realized that Levy's still in control. He's still saying when to pull the trigger, when to do this. And then I saw him dealing with the Richarlison transfer, and I was like, wait, hang on a second, why is he involved? And then again with the Jed Spence one, which dragged on and dragged on and dragged on. And I would have preferred, like, if you saw any other club, I remember like Chelsea, they didn't do well this season. But in terms of business, at least they were assertive. They were very quick off the mark. They knew what they wanted to do, what type of players they had identified them, and it got it done. Do you know what I mean? And I was very disappointed that we didn't address those key areas, which was the centre back and the right wing back. That was what everyone knew. We needed a right wing back. We got one for the future, which was understandable. Not everyone was happy with Jed Spence, but quite a few people were. Like, he was exciting talent. He did well against Arsenal in the FA Cup. Blah 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 blah. Well, we still needed like a senior right wing back because we knew Emerson wasn't that guy. So, and Doherty wasn't either. So we needed someone that would suffice in that area. And then centre back wise, we just needed a step up, another level up. And we were linked to players, linked to Bastoni the whole window. Then Guardiola got a shout, but then nothing really materialized. And then Longley was just alone, showing that, okay, we're not going to go for quality. Even if we bought a player and then Longley on top, because at least we've got one centre back. We're not discounting that we still want Bastoni, because Bastoni, we want that quality. But yeah. I thought we could have at least bought two centre backs. So you bought one in and then Longley on loan. So then that makes sense. But we just didn't get over the line. I just felt that was typical of what was happening. We bought in the wrong areas. We didn't need a striker, Richarlison. I felt like we already had Lucas Moura. We already had Brian Hill. We already had Kane. We already had Son. We already had Kulusevski. That's about 5 attackers there already. And because we brought Richarlison in, we thought, oh, let's put Brian on loan or whatnot. Or was it Brian Hill that went on loan in the summer? Or was it that was in the January window? Sorry. So anyway, we just prioritized for me in the wrong areas. So then straight away we're kind of on the back foot. We see other teams when they're buying players, they're strengthening their starting 11. We're not doing that. We're strengthening the depth, the substitutes, the players that come off. Then on top of it now, when we're actually playing, I felt like as soon as the Bentancur injury happened, it was unfortunate because Basuma was injured as well at a similar time. So naturally, you would have thought Basuma would jump in because Bentancur's gone and that midfield would step up. But the way it happened, it just kind of like it went all pair. And then I think some of the players are at fault. I'm not going to all put it on the board. I think some of the players just didn't step up. When we played like Nottingham Forest aren't better than Tottenham. But on a cup day, if the players are up for it and they've just got the energy and they just got that winning, they just want it more, then guess what? You're going to lose. And the same thing happened at Sheffield United. They didn't have their first team. It was their B team, was their second team, was a reserve team because they were trying to prioritize the championship more. But guess what? They just wanted it more. They were just more hungry for it. They just had the players to get it over the line. So for me, the players have to take a big L for that one. So I think they're also to blame as well. And then for me, Conte obviously thought we were Chelsea, in my opinion. As I said before, we had the whole Matic and Kante position that he tried to replicate with the Spurs midfield, and it just didn't work. And then the wing backs that we brought in just weren't the wing backs we needed. But obviously, Porro worked in January, but I thought Porro came too late in the window. Porro should have been the first signing in the first week because we knew we wanted Porro from before the World Cup. We had identified Porro from before the World Cup. So as soon as the window opens, I felt like, boom, Porro's in. Then we could have played him for like the Arsenal game. Then all of a sudden, that Arsenal game, we don't necessarily lose. It could be a different result. Or games leading up before Southampton, we could have had Porro in. Do you know what I mean? Because he needs time to settle, so he could have been affecting those games.
I think, in
Perisic,
fairness, Sporting weren't prepared to sell us Porro until after their Portuguese Cup final.
yeah, I could take that.
I think I'm happy to criticise Levy and the board, but I gather they weren't willing to sell us him until after the Portuguese Cup final. I'm more concerned about the fact that not that Porro's a bad player; he's anything but. But I'm worried about the fact that we bought a wing back that can't defend for £40 million.
Yeah,
I end up thinking he'll end up playing wide right if we're playing a 3. And when we talk about the new manager who plays 4-3-3, he'll play the right side of the right side. He'll be the right-sided attacker, not a wing back. He can't defend well enough to be a wing back. Not at the level of the Premier League.
Yeah. So basically, I felt that. All right, excluding Porro, I felt like we just spent too long. All right, you're not going to get Porro start the window. Move on to a different transfer target that we actually need. And at the time, I didn't feel like we needed Danjuma. I didn't think that was the option that was needed. I thought it was more defensively, someone that we needed. And we just didn't prioritize that. We got Danjuma. No one expected it. Well, here you guys go. Here you go. But then we needed areas that we needed to be strengthened more, which was more priority. But yeah, I just felt like Perisic didn't really step up to the level. I think we got him 4 or 5 years too late. I felt like, other than his crossing, I'm not sure he offered too much because he couldn't defend. So again, part of the problem, because if you've got Perisic playing alongside like a Longley or a Davies, because that's what it was, either those two playing centre back, they never had pace. So we lacked pace at the back. Only Romero is the only defender that had a little bit of pace about him. But if you play balls over the top, again, it's a weakness. So we just had so many holes and so many things that we needed to strengthen. In January, that's the time to do it. When you start seeing your team's not working, you're like, all right, cool. We thought we did it in summer. Let's address it in January. Let's fix some of these problems. And I felt like we didn't address any of those areas. And we waited to the last minute of the window to get the actual player in that we needed. So it was just, for me, it was just a series of errors. And then on top of it, you had players like Son, as I said, out of position, but Son didn't perform. Kulu didn't perform. The only player that was performing in our team was Kane. And even then, Kane didn't always have good games. Some games he went missing. Some games he was a ghost. Power book 2. So I don't know.
So
talk about Romero. Thankfully, people are starting to ask questions about Romero. One is rashness, the number of tackles, daft tackles he goes in for, getting cards when he shouldn't be. An experienced professional shouldn't be conceding cards. Secondly, he was injured for the last couple of games, but miraculously, once again, he's fit to play for Argentina. So there are a lot of fans, certainly over here, Murray, that are starting to question Romero. I think he's potentially a phenomenal player, but the weaknesses that he's got, one, his commitment to the club, and secondly, the number of idiotic cards he picks up are a problem, a major problem. When you think, if we're looking to build a stable defence, Romero should be the first rock that gets put in place as the foundation.
And I'm gonna do a special. I'm gonna do a special on Romero because I mentioned this. It was a real good study about how Romero plays. I've seen him probably more than the most Tottenham fan because I don't miss any Argentina games, and I will say this in regards to the injury. You remember in early February he said something about his injury and that he could have played. And then remember the next day or the next couple hours, he had to remove that tweet or post and had to apologize and said that the radio interview misquoted him. So in regards to his injury, he criticized the medical team for Tottenham. People forgetting that People are forgetting that he questioned that because he had an interview with TYC Sports, which is the main, it's the ESPN, it's the Sky Sports of Argentina, and that interview was damning to the medical team at Tottenham.
Mm.
And he had to apologize. So people forgot that. So, but I will agree he has regressed. But I'll let Ash speak because I want to talk about the manager and sporting director. We have.
Cool. Go for it.
You were going to say something about Romero?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. No, I was going to say that to be fair to him, he didn't start the first game when he for Argentina, and then I know he's being named in the squad, but it's not to say that he's not still picked up a knock or still not got an injury. I'm not. I'm just throwing that out there and as like possible. He could actually possibly be injured and actually have a knock. But again, it's like Conte even said that, what's wrong with this medical staff? I've never heard this I've never seen such a bad medical team.
It's the worst, and people are being silenced for mentioning it. So I mean, I'll leave that at that. But we'll go back to Ian. Ian, we don't have a manager. We don't have a sporting director. It's almost like almost like EastEnders because it's like a drama trying to find manager. Have we been turned down or not been turned down? Rumor here, rumor there. Did we talk to Nagelsmann? No, we did talk to Nagelsmann. I mean, Chelsea's already got their manager. I understand that if you are going after someone who is currently managing, you have to wait. Yeah. But even then, you already knew Poch was coming in. It is.
I think part of the problem is this is where the club, I think, lets itself down because its PR is appalling. And
thank you.
I don't know whether this Levy is camera shy is just a front for actually supporters. It's none of your effing business. It's our club, and we'll
He told that to the trust. He told that to the trust. But 2 summers ago, he said that to the trust. He basically told them, they came on the last word. They did the interview. It's basically they asked him, "What is your vision? What is your plan?" And basically, he said, "I don't need to tell you that," which means I have no vision, I have no plan. Yeah. That's what I'm not going to tell you.
And there will be. I mean, one of the things when the trust called for the resignation of the whole board when over the Super League thing, I thought they were so naive and stupid, as if they were just going to say, "Okay, we'll all leave and you appoint the board and run this multi-billion-pound business." It was an infantile way to deal with things. But there's no doubt that the board of the club and the PR people don't help themselves at all. I mean, for example, there's a sort of statement that came out not long ago that talked about the concerts, the boxing, the this and that. Oh, and by the way, we run a football club here. Now, someone in the PR department should be saying, no, you've got this is not complex public relations. This is someone who can look at it objectively and turn around and say, no, what you're saying, this is a football club with lots of ancillary activities and the infrastructure's in place to build a great future that we're working 24/7 to develop. I can do that. Hey, Daniel, I'm your new PR man. I've not got any PR experience. I can do this job. But hey, let's move on from that. You will always get lots of misinformation, disinformation, and what have you. Slot. I think, to be honest with you, I suspect we were talking to Slot, but what's obvious as well is Slot used us as the stalking horse to get more money out of Feyenoord and was never coming. That happens. That happens in business. People, listening, watching online, will turn around and say, "No, it doesn't." And then you go, "Hang on a minute. Yeah, I remember my mate John went into the boss, told him he was leaving because he'd got offered 10,000 a year extra by one of the competitors, and the boss said, "Okay, I'll give you another 15,000," and he stayed. That just happens. That happens all the time, and it happens in football. Nagelsmann, I don't know what's happening with Nagelsmann. I think there's an issue over his contract with Bayern. Normally, when because he had this same problem with Chelsea as well. I think he was possibly Chelsea's first choice. Turned round and said, sorry, they sacked him. But apparently you have to pay compensation to Bayern to get him out of his contract. So that's a strange situation, because normally you dismiss a manager, you agree compensation with him, which will reflect not just the outstanding period in his contract, but the amount of time it will take for him to get another job. And then you'd agree that, pay that compensation, the manager's free to get another job. Apparently, they're still paying Nagelsmann on the basis that when he takes another job, the buying company, the buying club that takes him on, will have to pay Bayern compensation. Now, my field of work is employment law, what you'd call labour law. If I were Daniel Levy and I was being told that was the arrangement with Bayern, I'd have two words to say, and the second one would be off. You sort out your arrangements with Nagelsmann. You pay Nagelsmann to terminate his contract, and then we'll take him on. And that payment that Bayern make to terminate Nagelsmann's contract will be reflected in the fact that he has a job working here. So I've got no time for Bayern and no time for Nagelsmann over that. He's also very young, and what have you. Pochettino, it would appear that Daniel, the romantic, wanted to bring Pochettino back and all was forgiven, but Donna Cullen said no. In fairness, I think the optics would have been appalling to bring back Pochettino, because anyone who is remotely critical of ENIC and Levy would say you've just wasted 4 years, with frankly 3 numpties managing the club, and we've actually gone backwards, and they would be right about that. Enrique, you made a comment about Enrique, and if people are joining the stream, Murray's point about Enrique was he's absolutely another one that things didn't go right for him. He would be the first to walk. He's also one that's used to working with elite, as a player, playing alongside elite players, and
Messi's, the Neymar's. We don't have that here.
And I just don't see this. Alonso is a name that's come about, but you may as well take Mason. Alonso's only been in management since, what was it, September or something like that. I don't see that. I don't see that at all. I want to read the comments as well while I'm talking, but there's a lot of talk north and south of the border here. That the manager that they're going for, and one of the reasons why it might have been quiet, is because that manager has his final game at I think 5 or 5:30 on Saturday afternoon, and that is the manager Celtic Ange Postecoglou. And I've read a lot of stuff online. What do we want the big fat Greek for? But the other significant appointment is this Scott Munn, who just happens to be an Australian, who we've appointed as, I don't know what his actual title of, but Director of Football Operations. So we're getting him as well as a Director of Football, and there's me again with my fingers crossed, saying that will mean hopefully that Levy will take a step back. Postecoglou. I'm not reading the comments because I can't talk and read the comments as well. But people, before anybody, if there's anyone in the chat saying, "Oh God, that's a terrible appointment," stop. Don't type. Just listen. Before you say anything negative, read his Wikipedia page. Just read what he's done and where he's been. He's won titles on 3 continents in 3 countries. In Australia, in Japan, and he's won the J League there, and in Scotland. Yeah, of course, they're not the top leagues in the world. We know that. But there are very few that have won titles in 3 countries. That's the first thing. He also managed the Australian national team. and took them to the Australian. Took the first time the Australian team had gone to the World Cup. That's the next point. The third or fourth point is that he is a serial winner. Everywhere he's gone, he's improved the clubs and taken them to titles and cups. The next point that I wanted to remember about this is at Brisbane, he cleared out the rubbish he didn't want. That included players people may know. Craig Moore played for Rangers. Bob Malcolm played for Rangers. Harry Kewell. But if we don't hire a DOF, yeah, maybe. But let me come on. When he went to Celtic, he's won he's won he's won 4 of 5 trophies so far. It should be 5 of 6 that he wins on, because they should be Inverness on Saturday afternoon. When he won the title a couple of weeks ago at Hearts, I didn't actually realise that he only had 3 players that were in the Celtic team in his first game in August 2021. So in 18 months, he absolutely cleared out the squad of the Deadwood, the Dross, brought in his own players, and wins the league by a lot. If you're not doing anything on Saturday afternoon after the English FA Cup final, put on Celtic and watch how they play. 1-2 touch, lovely football, high intensity, high press, not dissimilar to Pochettino. Yeah, of course, there's a lot of, I'll have to read some of these comments, that of course there's a big difference in refereeing in England. But work on the basis we ain't getting Pep and we ain't getting Klopp. So we have to find a manager. This manager plays good football, gets rid of Dross, is very much his own man. He's a typical straight-talking Australian, and alongside Scott Munn as they won't be putting up with any crap. I think players will be told it's this way or the highway. I think he's exactly what we need. And for those who are watching who don't know me, I live in Scotland and I watch a lot of Celtic, and I really love. Sufficient to say, just a one thought: every Celtic supporter will be devastated if he goes to Tottenham. Every Rangers supporter will be hanging out the flags. So anyway, as I say, I'm a big fan. He's been my first choice since the beginning. I don't think Gallardo's in the frame. Great appointment, but I just don't think that's what's happening. So look, that's my view. I said it from the beginning. Anyone looks at my social media can say I've been pushing Postecoglou from the beginning. I think he's exactly what Tottenham Hotspur need. Yeah, people talk about a big name. Well, let me tell you, there's 11 letters in Postecoglou, and there's not many bigger names than that in the frame. So, with a little bit of chutzpah, I say that. But seriously, he's a very good manager. If he comes, don't give it stick. Watch at least for a few months, and if he's crap, I'll come back on the show, Murray, and I'll say, hey, listen, I'm sorry, I got that completely wrong. But he'll clear the Deadwood. He'll bring in good players. He'll play exciting, attacking football that we've been craving for. Give him a chance if he comes.
Okay, we'll go to Ash, but that comment there.
Look at the comments now while other people are talking.
Yeah.
So yeah,
managers.
Yeah, basically, I've done a bit of research as well. I don't watch as much Scottish football as my friend Ian down there does. Yeah. But I have seen Champions League, and when he did play against, he played Shakhtar Donetsk against RB Leipzig, and for the just for the argument's sake, I'm not going to mention Real Madrid that Man City beat 4-0. I'm not going to mention them because that's unfair. I don't think that's fair. At home, I watched the Shakhtar Donetsk versus Celtic versus Shakhtar Donetsk, and I have to agree with Ian. Very front-footed, very attacking, pleasing to the eye, one touch football. I saw a clip when he berated the player for passing it backwards. So he's very progressive, even though he is one touch, two touch type of football, and he likes possession based football. It's not just possession for the sake of it. So I'm not mad at that. Just a few concerns defensively. I did see a lot of the time that they were exposed at the back. Albeit that they did have Carter Vickers in defense. That used to be one of your guys, one of the Americans at the back. But basically, they did look vulnerable at times, which you're going to do, because if you're going to be pressing high and you're going to be trying to like win games, you're going to get caught in that position. But yeah, it was funny enough. It was Mudryk that was causing a hell of a lot of problems. Obviously, he's at Chelsea now, but he looked like the real deal there at Shakhtar. But at Chelsea, end product isn't there. So I just know that he's lacking confidence. He will come good. And then RB Leipzig, when I watched that game, I just remember Nkunku. Oh my days, Nkunku! Whoa, he had there was a couple goals ruled offside. By a split of a hair. It wasn't like a Richarlison or a Sonny kind of offside. It was like, I think the time in the run was just off. But again, like one goal was ruled off, not offside. One goal was ruled out because one player was staying in an offside position. Could have been a lot more. Could have been a lot worse for Celtic. But my reservations is defense. But of course, whoever comes in, they're gonna need centre backs, because we had two defensive managers and we conceded the most amount of goals since the 70s. That says a lot. So my only hope is that if he comes in, we actually get some decent centre backs in to kind of facilitate his system. Because I think Tottenham have done better when we get managers that aren't necessarily big names. And I think at the moment, the fan base, we're not being spoiled, but I think our chest is a bit high, because we've had like Poch, and we've had Mourinho, we've had Conte, and now we've got this kind of unknown quantity. Who someone said in the comments, Arsene Wenger was an unknown quantity. He won the J League, and look how he revolutionized the Premier League.
Yeah.
So I'll also go back to another point I was going to say was with him. I forgot my point now. I was just watching your reactions.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you're watching the game. Is it penalty?
Yeah, the penalty kicks.
It completely threw me off. I'm like, oh, what's going on?
Sevilla won. Sevilla won. Yeah, my phone's just flashing up. One.
Yeah.
While you're doing that, so someone put in the comments, and I meant to mention this, that Postecoglou has won the J League. Now, you guys may be a little bit too young, because I think trying to remember when Wenger went to Arsenal about 96 or something.
96, I'm not too young. I remember those days.
You know, when they sacked Bruce Rioch and brought in Arsene Wenger, and everybody went, Arsene who? You know, but he'd won the J League. Well, so effing what? Well, he didn't do too badly at Arsenal, and
that's what I said. Yeah.
You know, as I say, I'm a big fan, and if he comes in and what have you, I'll be over the moon. But as I say, the last manager to win the J League did okay in the English league.
That was my point. So I remember now. So like basically, sometimes Spurs do better with lesser known managers.
Yeah.
When you look at Martin Jol, we had Santini. He was off the back of the French squad, you know, doing well. He came along and he made us just, you know, do 2 backs of 4, you know, made us defend deep, etc. And then Martin Jol came. He was like an assistant at NEC, and people were like, who? But obviously Arneson was the director of football at the time. I know, director of football. I know. But basically, he recommended Joel. Joel was an unknown quantity, and then he just freshened up the place, got us playing some of the best football we've played in a while. Again, Harry Redknapp underperformed, not underperformed, but he was at Portsmouth, Southampton, was known for doing a Sam Allardyce type of job, keeping teams up. Wasn't really known for big appointments. So he took over. And basically, he did really well with us. He got us into Champions League for the first time. I know Martin Yeo was knocking on the door, 5th and 6th performance, but then, so I just feel like every time we've gone like an appointment, other than Nuno I wasn't a fan of, but for argument's sake, he didn't get a lot of time. I think he got 2 or 3 months time, and then the fan base's chest was high again because obviously he's no Mourinho. And we meant to get Conte. Nuno was sacked after that Manchester United game, and obviously, yeah. The point I'm making is possible. It's possible that where we're at right now, because we're so low, we kind of just need. Maybe we just need someone that's maybe low profile. I'm not saying he's low profile, but we just need someone that's not a name brand manager or a win now, as we call it, a win now manager that needs those top elite level players to make their teams tick. Where is I think with Aposta, he can get like, hopefully he's not an imposter, but like hopefully he can get like players that are known in different leagues. He's got that world knowledge of the Asian league as well. He might be able to bring, like, look what he did with Celtic. He brought in like 3 Japanese under 21s, and now they're playing for the Japanese National League. So that just shows his mettle, his worth, and his level of man management. But like everyone else, I still have some kind of like what's the call? I still have my reservations because obviously it is what it is. Like again, when I saw him in the Champions League, it was nerve wracking. Defensively, I'm not 100% sure. This is the Premier League. It's at the most competitive it's ever been. We've got Brentford now, Brighton's there now, Liverpool's always been there, Chelsea will be back. Man United are trying to step it up. Arsenal and then Man City are just in a different stratosphere. The only thing I can say is that when people, when Brighton lost Potter and then De Zerbi came in, if it was the Spurs fans and De Zerbi came over, Spurs fans would be up in arms. Who's the De Zerbi? Why are we getting De Zerbi? What's he done in Italy? What's he done in Serie A? But now look at the style of football he's doing for Brighton, and look what he's reaping. Brighton's reaping the rewards. They did their due diligence, and that's my only thing I could say, like to kind of back Ian, like to say, right, there's a glimmer of hope. It could work. I just like he's a man manager. He doesn't have it, and he plays attacking football. I think that's my main thing about him. He just like he's got that with Potter. I think the reason why it never worked for him at Chelsea, he's a good tactician and he likes to tinker a lot, whatnot, and he does play attractive football, but he doesn't have that kind of like. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like I think the players would take the piss out of him.
No, the players, apparently the players don't respect them.
That's what I'm saying. This is what my point is, and I think
Potter, and then you have
exactly. That's what I'm saying.
And then you have those, and then everybody has an opinion. There are those who are like, "Oh, we should have a Graham Potter here at Spurs." These players
They don't like the pressure.
who have a commitment. These players who don't like the pressure were soft. You have Chelsea players who don't respect Potter. You think our players at Spurs are going to respect Graham Potter? Like I'm like that would be a disaster if they couldn't respect Conte.
Potter would be a massive risk, wouldn't he? I mean, one, I think from Levy's
Harry Potter. They said the rumor is players were calling him Harry Potter. Can you and some of these guys on the club, Romero's gonna look at him like
it's not the right job for Potter, and we're not the right club for him. We need someone who's gonna just go in and just kick shit out of some players.
Yeah. And so my opinion now on the manager sport director is it is so tough, because in theory, what you say, Ian, and what you say, Ash, so it's supposed to work. But how does that work when you don't have a plan and you don't have a vision? Because here's the thing: a sport director, we had a YouTube podcaster who runs Roma. Congratulations to Sevilla. once again.
Feels reading it now.
And we asked him, because he's one of the 3 candidates, right? Because we just actually 2, because the other one is not coming anymore. Okay, how would he work with Levy, and what type of players do he get? So he's more of a pragmatic Paratici 2.0. Is that going to work with Big? I like to call him Big Ang. Is it going to work with him? Right, because he's on the attacking, progressive front foot, but now you have a sporting director that is more pragmatic. How's that going to work? And then you have the players, right? It's going to take not 1, not 2, take 3 at least transfer windows to get what he wants to be able to get this offense going. And that's why I said, with the manager, I'm not saying because I'm depressed, well, it doesn't matter who we get, right? But if I'm wanting an attacking, because I'm done with the win now managers. Luis Enrique is a good coach, but it's just the wrong fit. It's very proven that Levy is not going to fully back win now manager. I was saying it's proven that Poch and the board are not going to support a win now manager. So you can forget the Poch, the Contes, the Luis Enriquez. I heard someone bring up Tuchel coming back because now Bayern's going to get rid of him or whatsoever. No, that's not going to work. So it's going to have to be a young progressive manager, right? Or Big Ang, he's older, he's 57, but it's just there's so much to do, like the effects, that you see at Celtic. It's going to take it's going to take a year or 2 till we finally see it because we just don't have to play. So for me, I don't really have, like I said, any manager that. So I like Guardalo, from River Plate, my rivals, because I'm a big Boca supporter. Yep. And I like Nagelsmann, but the question is, it's gonna take a whole lot of work bringing these managers in. You have to bring a sporting director that meets what the DNA is. Supposedly, we want pretty attacking football. We want champagne football. But then,
quick question. Sorry to cut you. Has Gallardo won in Argentina? Has he won with River Plate? Has he won a title?
Yeah, he's won. He's actually won Copa Libertadores.
I mean, their league, their Premier League, they're basically their league, not a cup. He's won their league.
Yeah,
because I know he won in Uruguay. But I wasn't sure if he won like his in the Argentinian league.
Yeah, no, he did win the league in.
What year was it?
I want to say. No, because it wasn't reset. Boca's having a bad year. I want to say the last time he won it. Gosh, I should know this. But he won the Copa Libertadores, which is the Boca. It is the Champions League of South.
Right. Okay.
Champions League of South America. If you guys ever get the chance to see it, it is a crazy tournament. Passionate. It's just as passionate as the Champions League. It's just it's nuts. I'm trying to get the most accurate information to you guys because you guys know it's different in South America. It's different because there's 2 seasons in one. You got the Apura, you got the Clausa. So you have the beginning championship. You got so the season is split into 2. So it's not as like the Premier League 22-23 championship. So I want to give you. Yeah, he's won 4 Copa Libertadores, one international intercontinental cup, one Supercopa Sudamerica, one Copa Sudamerica, Copa Sudamerica. So these are all tournaments, and so they have won the Clausa in 2014 and the final in 2021. In 2021, they won the league at 2021. That was the last time. Of course, Julian Alvarez, when we were linked to him, I said on stream, hey, get this guy, he's going to be good. Real Madrid's rumored to get him because he doesn't get playing time because of that monster that is Haaland. But yeah.
Do you think Spurs might move away from the sporting director and give Scott Munn a bit more responsibility because he's going to bring in, if he was to bring in Postecoglou, those two might work a bit close together and they might get like more of like a head of recruitment, like change the role, change the name. Because we seem to be getting rejected day in, day out by sporting directors. I'm thinking like, who else is left? Do you know what I mean? And maybe like they look in terms of the actual, like the people below, Paratici, who was there before, they might step up. So I can't remember what was the guy's name. I think it's Steinason. He used to be sporting director of Everton. He came to us about a year ago and he was part of our scouting network. He was like the assistant of the football director. I was wondering if like you reckon they might make him step up, or if they might change a few names or a few roles around, and like because Scott Munn's got the close affiliation with Postecoglou from the J League as well. He knows them well from that. They might like work and say like he might say, "Oh, I want this Japanese player, I want that Japanese player," and they might just because I remember I saw Levy saying he wants to move towards the kind of scouting system that Brighton and Brentford have, where they're using the stats-led kind of approach. Because I think he's lost a lot of money in trying to go for players like Richarlison, etc. I don't think he wants to make the same mistake. He wants to kind of unearth young talent and sell them on like the way he used to do, not the way he used to do in the past, but I think that model he would like because he could make a lot of money by selling players in their prime or just before their prime with big clubs coming along. Bit like what Brighton are doing at the moment.
Yeah, I think it would be let me get Ian back in here. I think that would be a disaster. I'm not trying to be negative towards Scott Munn. It's just that, and I don't want to disrespect what he did out in Asia, but man, Europe is a different beast. There's transfers, scouting. I mean, it's a different beast, and it's just it typical Spurs to say, all right, Scott Munn, because he's good, like I said, with spreadsheets. He's good with getting events and stuff like that. Because I looked at his CV, but the one glaring thing, it's a nice resume, but the glaring thing for me is just no experience at all with Europe. It scares me.
It's a massive gamble. It's a massive gamble either way.
Yeah.
Any way you look at it, but it's again you look at what Arsene Wenger did with the Arsenal team. He virtually got players that were quite young and unknown, but he basically knew the market. I think it was a bit different for him because obviously he's French and he knows the French market a bit different, whereas my man knows more like the Asian market. So the only thing I could say is like look at Matoma and players like that, how good they were. They Brighton scouted them for the J League. Could we get something similar? Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. And to answer your question, I wanted to make sure it's correct. Guardiola, Guardiola has won the league twice.
Okay.
With,
What years was it?
2014, 2015, and then he took a break and then came back 2016 to 2022. 2021 being the last one. But the most important thing is he won Copa Libertadores against Boca, which people don't understand. That is just as big as
World Cup.
Barcelona, Real Madrid.
Definitely.
They hate the violence. The game was actually played at the Bernabeu. It was played at in Madrid because there was a delay. There was a delay. To move the game to Madrid, and we lost, heartbroken. FU plot, and yeah, but but yeah, if you guys ever get a chance to watch the game, it's always the last game. There was a fight at the end of the game, so how it's called. So yeah, it's.
Do you guys think we're going to spend money this window, or do you think a war chest is going to be opened up and he's going to be backed, or do you think we're going to rely on selling players, getting out Deadwood to kind of fund the transfers?
Well, no, I'm glad you mentioned that because I want to kind of end on this because this is going into now the transfer window is opening, and I want to post this up, and I want to read that and change the banner. The squad. All right, so because this affects the squad, it says this. Right, this was today. Understand that Tottenham Hotspur Football Club transfer net spend this summer will not be as significant as last summer. A few key reasons for this: No Europe has significantly reduced the transfer budget. The loan obligations of Pedro Porro and Dejan Kulu and Spurs hope to gain money through sales, which for me, that equates that this squad, right? And I'm not talking about the current squad. I'm talking about Brian Hill's coming back as a winner. Winks, right? Regulated with Sampdoria. Namdembele, winner of Serie A. Joe Roden, right? Last week, I was posting. We were joking around. We were laughing, but still laughing matter. Those guys are coming back. Mind you, we're going to loan 6 players. It's been reduced. Along with this current club, this is the situation that we are with the squad. This is the situation that we are with the squad, and this is true. And season is going to be rough. It is going to be rough.
Yeah, I think if that is true, and I don't know how true this or how reputable this source is, but yeah, if it's true, you're right, man. It's not looking good. It's looking kind of rough because how much money can we accumulate from sales to buy any type of player that's going to help us push on? I think if we're looking at Postacoglu's side, he needs fullbacks. So that means Reguilon might have to stay. Sessegnon would have to rip up his contract. I don't know if we could sell him. There's a few contracts we might have to rip up because if we rip up contracts, yeah, definitely forget about Maddison.
Yeah.
That was a pipe dream anyway, in my opinion.
And Harvey Barnes, because it was for both of them, and I laugh every time I see that. I laugh every time when I see it.
Centre backs, we're gonna have to be creative with. We're gonna have to maybe get someone that's not on the radar. Well, and there's a few players that I thought we could have got that were on the free.
Remember, Destiny's coming back from Udinese,
Wing back.
And everything I've read about is a left back. Everything I read
He's
about
a wing back, though. He's not a left back.
he is a left back.
I heard he's a wing back. He plays as a wing back.
Well, the stuff I'm reading is he's a left back. He's good enough to be a left back or a wing back. If you're looking for a right back, Emerson's done okay at right back. His problem was when he played at wing back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm not saying he's the greatest player that's ever played the game, but
I think
somebody improved this season.
People don't like him.
About that earlier.
I think he can work as a right back. I think he can fit as a right back personally. Yeah. I agree.
I think people are going to have to be realistic about what we might get. We need central defenders. We desperately need central defenders, good ones. You say forget about Maddison. I mean, I don't know who this is understands. I get a bit pissed off, if I'm honest, that such and such understand and what becomes someone who might know, the world about what goes on at Tottenham and might know the square root of fuck all that goes on at Tottenham. That they understand, and this then from the online YouTube community becomes gospel. Yesterday I think the Independent was saying we're preparing a double bid for Maddison and Harvey Barnes. So I don't know any more than you do that they do. But yeah, it'd be great if we got Maddison and Harvey Barnes. If we got Postecoglou, it'd be brilliant if we got Kyogo and Maeda from Celtic as well, who would, are both superb footballers. Someone put in the chat, Alfie Devine apparently has scored again for the England under-21s. I don't know why we never see him near the first team. We brought on a couple of players at Leeds who I've actually never heard of. There's going to be a lot, but we are going to have to get rid of a lot of deadwood. And Ndombele, Winks, Lo Celso. Maybe some of them will come back under the right manager and improve. Who knows? And save us a fortune. Rodon, Sanchez, Dyer, Davis. They can't all go, but a good number of them are going to have to go and going to have to be improved. There's actually a lot of money in outgoings if we can get some realistic money rather than asking. We're not going to get the 50 million for Ndombele, but maybe someone will give us 20 million for him. We can take take the hit on it, and that's 20 million at least we can put into the transfer fund. I wouldn't think Cameron Carter-Vickers is coming back, much as he's improved massively at Celtic. At the end of the day, it is at Celtic, and I don't think Cameron Carter-Vickers will come back. But he's probably the outstanding defender in Scottish football, which you're entitled to say it says a lot about Scottish football. But he has improved enormously, and he is undoubtedly the best central defender in Scottish football by quite a distance. But
so Ian. And I want to end this off, and Ash, I want to end this off with this question, right? For me, we're about to go into the summer. There are those who believe if we sprinkle maybe 3 or 4 players, it won't be all that bad. For me, I find that ray of light not to be there. I think for it to be good, we have to go through more pain and more bad. And the reason why I say this is because not only because we don't have a manager, sporting director, right? I'm not saying that because not only we have to get rid of deadwood, we have to, of course, buy players, quality, I hope. But I say it because, then again, we need a whole scouting philosophy, right? Because our scouting department, in my opinion, sucks. Then there's the academy. And I know the young lads, they did okay, but there is still a disconnect from the academy to the team. And so, and then you still have Levy, who still meddles. And I know at the beginning we were talking about the perfect scenario is for him to not to meddle, but his ego, his narcissistic ways, he still gets involved. And so my question is there hope for Spurs? And for me, I'm like, not this season. It's going to be like Poch said, a long, painful process. Even if we get what we want in regards to maybe Scott Munn taking full control and the new director, which I find hard to believe, right? I still think there's so much in the institution. There's so many holes. There's so many things that need to be fixed. They almost has to go through a whole rebuild, starting with what do we want our club to be known for? What is the ethos? What is the manifesto? What is the vision of this club? Do you guys feel the same way? Is there hope for Spurs?
I think the manager, whoever comes in, has a massive job on his hands, because not only does he have to get rid of who he doesn't want or who he doesn't think is good enough, but he has to unite the board and the fan base. And my glimmer of hope is that not that Spurs, finish in the top 4 or top 6 or finish in Europe, a European spot. My hope is that we start to see some type of consistency and a style of football that fans can get behind. And I think that's the only way fans and the boards and everyone can get behind the football. If we understand the style of football and it's attacking, it's just completely different to what we've been seeing. And people can go to the stadium and just enjoy the football again. We've been talking about non-football things for too long now. It becomes so political. I'm a football fan. I'm not an expert in some of these economical, sociological matters that doesn't concern me. It doesn't really excite me. So when the football starts to pick back up, and this is my hope, that a coach can come in and he can bring a style of football that we can. We might be losing games, but we go to teams like the bigger teams, the so-called top 6, and we have a go. Simple as that. We go, we show up. We do that. There's a chance. There's a glimmer of hope. It doesn't matter who we're playing or what type of player we have or who we signed. Just play for the shirt, give 100%, and don't play backwards football. Play attacking football. It sounds simple, doesn't it? But I think things can get turned around really quickly when you play the right type of football and you've got the right type of attitude and the players follow suit and players buy into it as well. Because if the players buy into it, the fans buy into it as well.
Mahri, when we opened up the show, you asked me about my expectations. And mine was similar to yours, that we'd be back in the top 4, and with Conte that we would compete and hopefully win one of at least what I call them, the 2 minor trophies, the League Cup and the FA Cup. And it was such a disappointment. I think everybody now is going into the coming season with absolutely low expectations. And in some respects, that's probably good. As I say, I've set my stall out. We can bookmark and say, look, this is the man who said Postecoglou. I do think he ticks absolutely every box. And one of the things is he doesn't put up with any crap. He absolutely doesn't put up with any crap. The other thing, as I said, when he was at Brisbane and at Celtic, he just got rid of what he didn't want. He just dumped them. And that ended up with title wins. Now, I'm not suggesting for a minute we're going to win the title. It's a very, very different kettle of fish winning the J-League and winning the Australian League, or the different manifestations of the Australian League E1. But I expect there, if he does come in, to be an exponential improvement in attitude. The other thing is, as I said earlier, people would have put up with not winning things if the football had been better. But to go out in the cup competitions we went out with, some of the timid and bordering on appalling performance we put in the league while playing the most dismal, boring football was just totally unacceptable, particularly for Tottenham. So if we do nothing, I want to see us improving, maybe getting a cup run, a good cup run, hopefully winning a cup. But again, if we're not gonna win everything, which we won't, at least playing football that is in our proper football that's in our DNA. That where you go to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and looking forward to being entertained, because that hasn't happened, and it's been bad. It's been really bad.
Yeah, and no, I agree with you guys. I it's I don't want to sound negative, but I have to be honest, and that it's going to be some tough years, and I'm Ash. I hate that the politics and stuff has to come because I'm a football fan. I want to see before football. I want to see my team win. Right. I want I'm looking at the Sevilla players. They celebrate. I'm watching the Roma fans crying. That's the game. That's the name of the sport. The joyous of victory. And the agony of defeat. And I just for me, I just hate the fact that I'm gonna come into the season already defeated. Every year. Call me crazy. Right? We're all in first place. The first game of the year, we have a chance to win the Premier League. Right? This year will probably be the first time where I'm just like, before we we kick the ball, I'm like, our season's done. And I hate feeling that way. But it's just I can't be oblivious. I can't be naive to see the structural foundation of this home is terrible. And even if we were to bring in Ang, or like I said, I might have to work on pronouncing his last name, and or Nagelsmann or whoever we desire, the work is going to be more than them. It's going to be more than them. It's going to have to be a huge cultural change. And the thing is, how much power does the manager or sports director is going to have when you have Levy and the board and the Donna Cullens? I didn't know her name. I care less to know her name seasons before. Now, as things has come out, she has a huge influence, and so it just makes me sick because I believe this club should be led by football people. All right, Daniel Levy, sign the checks. Get every event. Backstreet Boys. Whatever event. In sync. Janet Jackson. Wiz Kid at the stadium. That's great. And then have the club
on the block
fidelity, get a scouting, and then trust them. And that's the thing. Trust these guys. All right, I'm giving you 150, right? Just like Brighton, like Brentford, and here's 150. I'm not gonna say anything. If you fill out that 150, you can get 5 players in, great. If you can get 8 players, great. If you can get 3 players that you believe that the manager needs, great. I'll sign the checks. Rather than have you, who have probably been picked last in the pickup game, who has no experience coaching, playing, scouting in football, to have a say. It's embarrassing to hear David Webb's interview, and then to have a guy. I have more of a say in regards to football talent than Daniel Levy. All of us, and so it's just so frustrating, so frustrating. Any final words, guys? Season's over, so we don't have any predictions. So
the only thing I would say is, like, if Levy's gonna carry on the way he is, I just want transparency. That's one thing we can't get from him. If he just said, "Look, guys, this is how much we're spending. This is what we're doing. We haven't got a manager or we haven't got a sporting director in because X, Y, Z." He's just got zero communication with us. So we just left in the dark, and then rumors like this come up and we have to debate and do hypotheticals. And when things do happen, then we're upset because, you know, we didn't know it was going to happen. It comes as a surprise. And every day it's like a drama. Do you know what I mean? It's like a, what do you call it? A serial, a series. It's like one of them sitcom, like a sitcom. I feel like I'm in a sitcom. And every day is something hilarious to laugh at. But where about the jokes? But yeah, that's my only wish. Like, if I knew, I could take it. If he said, "Rod, we're having no money and we're not getting a manager until 15th of June," I'd be like, "All right, cool. I know what we're working with. Cool. Oh, my ambition is to be top 4, but if we don't get it, we don't get it. All right, cool. I know you don't want cups. All right, cool." But where it's just like we're left in the dark, yeah, that's what I'm gonna say, Rob. Really,
my glass is always half full. You know that, people on the chat know from stuff I say. Like last year, I will go into this season with optimism. If we've got the right manager, and I genuinely believe Postecoglou is absolutely the man we need. What I would expect and what I will look at is between now and, say, the 31st of January 2024, is how much of the deadwood has been driven from the club and new players brought in. There is still the nucleus of a decent side there. You know, you've still got Kane. I don't think Kane, Son, Kulusevski, Richarlison hasn't become a bad player. You know, Bentancur, Bissouma. You know, these are decent footballers. There is the nucleus there, but the deadwood needs to go, and you know, 4 or 5, 6 decent players need to come in, and we can challenge again. But it's getting tougher and tougher. You know, Liverpool will be better next season. Manchester United will probably get better. Newcastle, they're just Newcastle. Manchester City have taken their game this season to another level. You've got Villa there under Emery. What a job he's done, and probably might well improve. Brighton under De Zerbi overachieved, but I wouldn't bet against them overachieving again. Same with Brentford. Chelsea, I don't know. I'm not convinced about Chelsea coming back anytime soon. I think they might still be in big trouble. I think they've got a lot of big time Charlies there who fancy themselves, and there's stuff about Harry Potter, and they might be saying the same thing about Pochettino. I don't think it's a great job for him, but you can't discount them. So there's 10 teams out there, and there's only 4 Champions League places and only 2 Europa League places, and there's only 2. Sorry, I'm on my phone. And there's only 2 domestic cups and a league to go for. I don't think we're going to be winning the league. It's going to be tough, but I just want to see us progressing. And above all, I do want to see the dross moved out, because we haven't had that rebuild. I want someone with the guts to get rid of the players that are not serving the club any longer. And I want to see us playing Tottenham football. And touch wood, we will see that. And at least when we're talking next season, if we're not all jumping up and down because we're winning week in, week out, that we're playing Tottenham football, you can see a pattern, you can see an improvement. The players that have been brought in are taking us forward. My glass will always be half full, and I'll always hope that this next year has got to be better than this one. But like the guy that was said earlier about seeing some bad times and seeing us relegated, there's been a lot worse than this. A lot worse than this. But you know, the nucleus is there for us to be, and the infrastructure is there for us to get better, and we have to get better.
Yeah. Before we go, just want to give a big up. Thank you, Rachel, for becoming a YouTube member. Big up, Rachel. Thank you for the support. Patty Mack, thank you for the super chat. Off the pitch, Dyer, Ben, Ben Davies, more laid back at lazy attitude. Agree. Yes, I would say off the pitch and on the pitch, Dyer laughed about our trophies, and so yeah, I just thought that was disrespectful. I think I'm trying to remember who he did the interview from. I think it was someone from the Spurs channel. Expressions is on that company. Gosh, that him and Troops are on. Well, anyway, yeah, no, I really think that Ben Davies seems like a good guy. He's just not good enough. He's slow. He's not quick. Like it, he tries hard, but he's just not good enough. Moore is just gone. So I don't want to talk about him. So yeah. Then we have another super chat, which I am not going to read. I said earlier that the other guys will address the situation with Bob, and so I'm not. Thank you for the donation. Super chat. I'm not going to post about it and won't say any more comments. It's out there in social media on YouTube. You can watch the video, come to your conclusions. The only thing I would say this that it's been a long season, and this is just more hurt, more pain to the community, to our. I would like to think all Spurs consider ourselves as a family, but when people can't, it's I'm just leave at that. But it will be addressed, and like I said, really sad situation, messed up situation. This thing all balled into one, and I'll leave at that. Um, but, um, but yeah, want to post this. You Mark, Ash. People can find yourself, you Coys. When is your next show?
We're trying to put something together this weekend. I've got a few videos loaded up, so it's gonna release it if and when the time is right. But yeah, we're just looking at the director of football manager situation, seeing how that progresses. Big up all the people in the chats. Thanks for showing me love. Yeah, and big up you guys on the panel as well. Thanks for having me on. I respect you guys, and yeah, more love, man. That's it.
Yeah, definitely. And Ian, wherever you need it, you're everywhere. Where can people find you?
I always do whenever I'm asked. Danny's just come on. There was a group thing we were doing with Danny. I think Danny's been busy, but there was me, there was Brian, there was Danny, and Ian Lubin did a thing. I'm due to do a cock-a-doodle-doo with Brian this week. We'll see if that takes place. I'm often on Spurs Asian TV with Eugene. It's a show I enjoy doing. I haven't got my own channel. I think there's enough of them out here already. But if people ask me and I'm around, I'll always come on and say my piece. But a little quiet summer now. Let's see what the board do. Let's see what players come in, what players go out, and hopefully things will get better. Things can only get better. We said the only way is up before. Yaz and the plastic, whatever they were, someone came up with. D-Ream, things can only get better. That was the song.
Yeah. Yeah, and Dan says he will start that up again soon.
Big up Danny. Big up Danny.
Big up Danny. Big up. And so, yeah. And you're treading some bad waters. All right, my friend. If you're trying to be funny, just understand people been hurt by this situation, and so just leave it be. I'm not going to read that super chat. Thank you for the donation, but I am not going to read that super chat. So, and I'm gonna just leave it at that. Guys, remember, Fando is tomorrow. Stell will be here tomorrow. You guys can be able to jump on and have your say, end of the year say. And then there's the Friday show. Wait, is there a Friday show? I want to say there's a Friday show, but I know I will have the end of the year award show. Thank you, Stuart. And so, no really donations for me, other than Saba is doing a 24-hour Friday Heart Foundation, and that's legit. That's legit. If you want to donate to the Heart Foundation, that's very, very deep interest to them. And if I ever do something in the future, I'll probably go with diabetes. My dad was diabetic. He passed away from that. If I ever do a fundraiser later on. But like I said, it's been interesting times within the Spurs community. And I'll leave it. But other than that, we are done. We had a good show, and we will leave off. Thank you, Scott, on 2 words. Ian probably won't say it, but for me, Enoch out, and then PS and really share your input. Like I said, this was good. We wanted to get all angles of the weight of our club, the state of our club. All right, and we are out.